Before we start, I want you to know something. Every small town in Arkansas has a hollow, a low patch of land where the fog settles wrong, where cell service dies, and where your grandparents told you to keep driving and never stop. Crossett had one, and between 1987 and 1994, 7 different people made contact with something in that half-mile stretch of Route 9. Some of them called 911. Some of them couldn't. This is what the recordings say, and what they don't. The Red State Horror presents The Hollow off Route 9, the most disturbing true horror story from Crossett, Arkansas, Ashley County, 1987 to 1994. Based on documented incidents, dispatch recordings, and local testimony, we divided the story into 6 simple parts. Let's start with the introduction. The town that smelled like the mill. Crossett, Arkansas, sits in Ashley County, deep in the timber and paper country of the southeastern corner of the state. Population, 4,000, give or take. There is one high school, one stoplight on Main Street, and a Georgia Pacific paper mill on the south end of town that has been running since 1953. On still evenings, you can smell the sulfur from the pulping process all the way out to Route 9. Locals call it the smell of money. Outsiders call it something they can't say on a family channel. The town is the kind of place where everybody knows your truck, knows your daddy's truck, and knows which field your grandfather sharecropped before the mill came in. People don't lock their doors in Crossett, or at least they didn't, not until the word started getting around about the hole. Route 9 cuts east out of town through pine flatlands and low creek bottoms. About 2 miles out, the road dips into a wet depression, a genuine hollow in the old Ozarks sense of the word, a place where the land folds in on itself and the trees grow taller and closer than they have any business doing in flatland country. The hollow runs roughly half a mile along Route 9. There are 2 properties on it, the Deason place on the south end, a farmhouse built in 1959, and the Hiller property on the north end, which was a rental house that changed tenants every couple of years without fail. Between those 2 properties is an unpaved access road that cuts through the center of the hollow, dead-ending at an old creek bridge that washed out in 1974 and was never rebuilt. The county never saw a reason to maintain that road. Nobody really went down it. Deer hunters, maybe. Kids on dirt bikes in summer. That changed on October 14, 1987. That was the night Marla Deason made the first call. Chapter 1. The Thing on the Porch. October 14, 1987. Marla Deason had lived on Route 9 her entire life. 34 years. She knew every sound that property made at night. The way the pines creaked. The way the creek frogs went quiet before a storm. The way the porch boards settled in the cold. So when she heard the screen door flex at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, she knew exactly what she was hearing. And she knew, in the way that your body knows things before your brain catches up, that it wasn't the wind. Dale Deason had been in El Dorado since Monday on a plumbing contract. The 2 girls, Brenda, 9, and Amy, 6, were at their grandmother's house in Hamburg for the week. Marla was alone, which she was used to. She'd fallen asleep in the recliner watching the 10 o'clock news when the sound woke her. The screen door on the front porch of the Deason house was on a spring closure. It had a specific sound, a flex, then a creak, then a wooden frame impact as it settled shut. 3 sounds, in that order, always. Marla heard the flex. Then nothing. No creak, no impact. Just the flex. The sound of something pressing against the screen and holding pressure on it. Steady, patient. She sat in the dark for 20 minutes without turning on a light. Later, she would tell investigators that she couldn't explain why she didn't just turn on the light and look. She said it felt like the same instinct that keeps you still when you think something is in the room with you. Like some part of her brain had already made a threat assessment, she wasn't consciously aware of it yet. At 11:22 p.m., she crawled to the kitchen on her hands and knees, picked up the wall phone, and dialed 911. Dispatch recording, Ashley County Sheriff's Office, October 14, 1987, 11:22 p.m. Dispatch, Ashley County, what's your emergency? Marla, something's on my porch. I need someone out here right now. I'm on Route 9, Dale Deason's property, the farmhouse. Dispatch, ma'am, can you describe what you're seeing? Marla, I haven't looked. I don't want to go near the window. It's been on the porch for at least 20 minutes. It isn't moving. Dispatch, have you heard any sounds? Any voices? Marla, no. That's the thing. It's completely quiet. Not even the frogs. It's just standing there. Dispatch, is it possible it's an animal? A deer, maybe? Marla, long pause. It pressed against my screen door. It used its hands. I heard it. A deer doesn't do that. Dispatch, ma'am, stay on the line. I'm dispatching a unit now. Can you see it from where you are? Marla. I'm going to look. Sound of movement. Long silence. Oh. Oh, God. Dispatch. Ma'am? Are you with me? Marla. Whispering. It's taller than the porch light. Dale put that light up at 9 feet so he could work under it. This thing is taller than 9 feet. It's just standing there. It hasn't moved. Dispatch. Is it facing you? Marla. Long silence. Then, very quietly, it just turned its head. It heard me talking. It knows I'm in here. Sound of floor creaking. Please hurry. Please. Deputy Trent Alford was 14 minutes out. He hit his lights on Route 9 and made the Deason driveway in 13 minutes. The porch light was still burning. There was nothing on the porch. Marla was in the kitchen, crouched behind the island counter, phone still gripped in both hands, not moving. Alfred had to announce himself 3 times before she stood up. He noted in his report that she was visibly shaking, pale, and appeared to have been crying, though she denied being upset. A detail that strikes most people who read it as almost funny, except for what comes next to the report. Alfred walked on the porch with a flashlight. He found mud on the front steps. Specifically, a series of impressions in the red clay mud that had tracked off the lower step. He photographed them. 4 photographs, which are still on file with the Ashley County Sheriff's Office as part of case number 8710441. In his written report, he described the impressions as follows. Prints consistent with a bipedal subject. 2 feet, alternating stride, but not consistent with any boot or shoe style I have encountered. Impression width approximately 9 inches at the widest point. Stride length between prints is approximately 58 inches. No toe definition visible. Depth of impression suggests significant body weight. Unable to identify. 58 inches between steps. Nearly 5 feet of ground covered per stride. For context, the average human walking stride is about 30 inches. A very tall person moving fast might reach 42 inches. Alfred wrote it up as an animal. Bear activity had been reported in Ashley County that autumn, he noted. He told Marla the same thing. She listened and did not respond. He offered to stay until she felt safe, and she said no, just go, and he went. She slept in her car that night. She drove to her mother's in Hamburg the next morning. She never spent another night in that house. Dale put the property on the market in the spring of 1988. It sat unsold for 14 months, a fact that everyone agreed was unusual for that kind of land in that county. Eventually, he stopped listing it and let the taxes run. The house on the south end of the hollow sat empty for the next 3 years. If you want more stories that will keep you up at night, subscribe to Red State Horror on YouTube for new stories every week. Chapter 2. The Baby in the Hallway. March 3, 1989. The Pruitts moved into the Hiller property in January of 1989. They had a 7-week-old baby girl named Claire. Kevin worked nights at the mill. The rent was $210 a month, which was cheap enough that Stacy didn't ask why the previous tenant had broken the lease. She assumed it was money trouble. Most things are money trouble when you're 23 and have just had your first baby. She found out later it wasn't money trouble. She found out later what the previous tenant had told the landlord when he left. But that conversation didn't happen until after the night of March 3rd. After what happened to Claire, 7 weeks old, colicky, which means she cried most of the night, every night, which is a thing that wears parents down to bare nerves in ways that are hard to explain to anyone who hasn't lived through it. Kevin worked the midnight shift at Georgia Pacific. Stacy was alone with Claire from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, 5 nights a week. On the night of March 3rd, Stacy had gotten Claire down just before midnight. A small miracle, a bottle that had actually worked, a half hour of rocking that had finally done the job. She put Claire in her crib in the nursery, noted with exhausted relief that the baby was actually, genuinely asleep, and went to the couch in the living room. She was asleep in minutes. She woke up at 2:17 a.m. because the house was silent. This is the detail that gets people. Stacy Pruitt, interviewed 6 months later by a journalist from the El Dorado News-Times, said, "People think what woke me up was a sound. It wasn't. It was the absence of sound. Claire had cried every single night since she was born. That silence, a quiet that felt different from regular quiet, felt heavier somehow, woke me up faster than any noise ever had." She went to the nursery. The crib was empty. The window was open. The screen was intact and latched from the inside. The window sash had been raised approximately 14 inches. Stacy Pruitt told investigators she stood in the doorway of that empty nursery for somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 full minutes. She couldn't say for certain before she was able to make her body move. She screamed her daughter's name, then she ran to the kitchen and called 911. Dispatch recording. Ashley County Sheriff's Office, March 3, 1989, 2:19 a.m. Dispatch, Ashley County. What's your emergency? Stacy. Screaming, my baby. Somebody took my baby. She's gone. She was in her crib. Dispatch, Ma'am, I need you to breathe. What is your address? Stacy, Route 9. The Hiller property. We rent the Hiller property. I don't know the number. It's on Route 9, the Hollow, you know the Hollow. Dispatch, I have you. Stay on the line. Is anyone in the house with you right now? Stacy, I don't know. I don't know. The window in the nursery was open. I didn't open it. Kevin isn't home. She was in her crib. I checked her at midnight and she was in her crib. Dispatch, have you searched the rest of the house? Stacy, I'm afraid to. There's something. Sound of footsteps, a door opening. Oh, she's here. Dispatch, your daughter is there? Stacy, she's on the floor. The hallway floor. She's not crying. Long pause. She's just lying there looking at the ceiling. She's not crying. Why isn't she crying? Dispatch, is she breathing? Is she responsive? Stacy, yes, she's breathing. She's looking at me. She knows who I am. I can see it. She's just not crying. She stopped crying. Why would she stop? Dispatch, units are on their way, ma'am. Can you tell me? Stacy, whispering. Something was in this house. Something moved her. Something put her down in the hallway and left her there. She's 7 weeks old. She cannot crawl. She cannot roll. She cannot move herself 11 feet around a corner. Something moved her, and it left her here like it was done with her, like it was finished looking at her. 2 deputies responded. Baby Claire was physically unharmed. Temperature normal, pulse normal, no marks or bruising anywhere on her body. A pediatrician examined her the following morning, perfectly healthy. Developmentally normal. The investigators found no signs of forced entry. The window screen was, as Stacy had noted, latched from the inside. There were no footprints outside the nursery window. The ground below it was soft from recent rain, the kind of soft ground that holds impressions well. No impressions of any kind. There was one detail that did not appear in the official incident report. Stacy Pruitt told the El Dorado Journalist and later repeated to a researcher who contacted her in 1993 that when she picked Claire up from the hallway floor, the baby's onesie was damp, not wet enough to suggest a diaper issue. Damp on the outside, the front of the onesie, the chest, and the belly. Like something had been breathing on her, Stacy said. Close. From above, something had been leaning over her for a while. Kevin Pruitt quit the night shift the following week. He took a pay cut to work days. He told a coworker he couldn't leave Stacy alone on that property anymore. He told the same coworker something else, something that coworker shared years later with a local historian named Deb Shrum, who was the one who eventually put the full picture of the hollow together. Kevin told me, the coworker said, that he felt like whatever was out there had been looking the baby over, like it was deciding something, like it was taking stock of her. He couldn't explain why he felt that way. But he said it wasn't random. He said he felt sure, dead sure, that it had specifically come for Claire. He wanted to see her up close, that it had been satisfied with what it saw, and that was somehow the most terrifying part of the whole thing. Not that it had taken her, but that it had brought her back. The Pruitts moved out 10 days after the incident. The Hiller property sat vacant through the summer of 1989. The 2 houses on the Hollow, the Deason place on the south end and the Hiller property on the north, were both empty now. Both are dark. The half-mile between them was unlit, unoccupied, and largely untraveled. Or so everyone assumed. Chapter 3, The Fuel Tank. August 19, 1991. Cody Marsh was 15 years old in the summer of '91. He grew up 3 miles east of the Hollow and had ridden his dirt bike on that access road every summer since he was 12. He knew that road. He knew where the ruts were, where the creek pulled across the gravel in wet weather, where the good jump was before the first turn. He wasn't afraid of that road, until the night the engine died and the silence came in and he heard something breathing in the trees 30 feet away that was not anything he had a name for. August 19th was a Wednesday. Hot, the way Arkansas Augusts are hot, the kind of heat that doesn't break at sundown, that sits in the air at 10 p.m. like a wet blanket, that keeps the mosquitoes active all night. Cody had been out since 8, after dinner, running the dirt trails east of town. He had a curfew of 10. He was pushing it, he knew, and he was cutting through the Hollow access road as a shortcut back to Route 9 when he hit a water rut he hadn't remembered and went down. He wasn't hurt. Skinned knee, bruised ego. The bike had stalled when it went over. He got up, got the bike upright, and tried to start it. It turned over twice and died. He tried again. Nothing. He checked the kill switch. Fine. Checked the choke. Fine. Stood there in the dark, on an unpaved road in the hollow, surrounded by pines. About a quarter mile from Route 9 in one direction, and a quarter mile from the washed-out creek bridge in the other. That's when he heard it. He described it to investigators, and later to his mother, and later to Deb Shrum, and later to a podcast interviewer in 2019. Always with the same language, always the same phrase. A wet sound, like something breathing through a cloth. Rhythmic. Slow. Coming from the tree line to the east, maybe 30 feet off the road. Not moving. Just breathing. Patient. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, Cody said in the 2019 interview. And in those 10 seconds, I understood something I'd never understood before, which is that there are things your body knows that your brain takes a minute to catch up to. My body had already decided. My legs were already moving. I just hadn't consciously made the decision yet. He ran. Left the bike on its side in the road. Ran the full quarter mile to Route 9, hit the asphalt, and kept running east on the shoulder. He was a cross-country runner, lean, fast, and conditioned. He covered that quarter mile in just over 90 seconds. He did not look back. At the Route 9 junction, he flagged down a passing pickup truck. The driver, a pulp delivery man named Gerald Stokes, who was heading back to Crossett after a late run to Monticello, pulled over. Cody was shaking, he said. He could barely talk. Dispatch recording. Ashley County Sheriff's Office, August 19, 1991, 10:48 p.m. Dispatch. Ashley County, what's your emergency? Gerald. Yeah, I got a young kid here on Route 9 at the Hollow Junction, east side. He's really shook up. Says something came at him on the access road. Dispatch. Is the boy injured? Gerald. Muffled. Son, are you hurt anywhere? Haas. He says no. Says he left his dirt bike in there. Says something was in the trees. Dispatch. What did he see? Did he get a look at it? Gerald. Muffled. To Cody. Did you see it? Haas. He says no. He says he heard it. Haas. He says it followed him to the tree line and stopped. He says it stood there and watched him run. Dispatch. Can he describe what he heard? Gerald. Long pause, listening to Cody. He says it sounded like... Pause, he says it sounded like breathing. Real slow. He says the whole time he was running, until he hit the pavement he could hear it. And then it stopped. Dispatch. It chased him? Gerald. Muffled, then back. He says no. He says that's the thing. Voice dropping. He says he never heard it move. He says he could hear it the whole way to the road. 30 feet away, then 50, then 100, then 200. Same volume, same distance. He says it wasn't running after him. Dispatch. Sir, if it wasn't chasing him, how could he still hear it? Gerald. Quietly. He says it never had to run. He says it just stood there and let him go. Like it was watching. Like it was letting him leave. Deputy Sandra Bryce responded. She found Cody and Gerald at the junction, took a brief statement, and called for a second unit to walk the access road. Deputy Alford, the same Trent Alford from the Deason call 4 years earlier, volunteered for the walk. They found the dirt bike on its side in the road, exactly where Cody had left it. Everything on the bike was undisturbed. His helmet strapped to the handlebars, his jacket balled up in the milk crate on the back rack. The road around the bike was undisturbed. The fuel tank was empty. Not nearly empty. Not spilled. There was no fuel on the ground. No smell of spilled gas in the road. The tank was clean and drained. And the fuel cap was sitting on the ground beside the rear tire, placed there as neatly as if someone had set it down carefully while they worked. The cap was on the left side of the bike. The fuel tank opening is on the right. Someone had to walk around the bike to put that cap there, Alford noted in his report, and do it quietly enough that a 15-year-old running from something 30 feet away didn't hear them do it. In August. On a gravel road. At night. That part doesn't make sense anyway. I look at it. I put it in the report because I don't know what else to do with it. Cody Marsh never rode that road again. He sold the dirt bike the following spring. He moved to Little Rock for college in 1994 and hasn't lived in Crossett since, though he returns for Christmas most years. In 2019, when the podcast interviewer asked him what he thought the thing in the trees was, he was quiet for a long moment. I think, he said finally, that it's been there a long time. Whatever it is, I think the hollow is its place. And I think it knows, I think it understands on some level, that if it lets you leave, you won't come back. You'll tell your friends, and your friends won't go. And it stays where it wants to be. Quiet, on its land. He paused. I think it let me go on purpose. I think it made a calculation. If you want more stories that will keep you up at night, subscribe to Red State Horror on YouTube for new stories every week. Chapter 1 Vive. What Deb Shrum Found, Winter 1992. Deb Shrum was a high school history teacher in Crossett for 22 years. She ran the local historical society out of the library on Main Street every Tuesday evening. She was not the kind of person who believed in monsters. She was the kind of person who believed in documentation and primary sources, in the difference between what somebody said happened and what you could prove happened, which is exactly why, when she started putting together the timeline of the Hollow, she couldn't explain what she was looking at. Deb started her research in January of 1992 after the county gated off the access road. The official reason given was erosion damage to the road surface. Deb, who had grown up in Ashley County and knew every county road within 20 miles of Crossett, thought that was unusual. The county didn't typically gate roads for erosion, they just stopped maintaining them and let them deteriorate. She asked around. She made a FOIA request for the maintenance records. She got back a file that contained no maintenance records at all, just a single work order dated December 1991 that said, in its entirety, gate installation, Route 9 access road, hollow section. Approved by county judge. No further action. That phrasing, no further action, stuck with her. It wasn't standard language for a maintenance order. She started pulling incident reports. The Deason call. The Pruitt call. The Marsh call. She found them easily enough in the public record. Ashley County was a small operation, everything was indexed on paper, and the librarian who ran the county records room had been doing it for 30 years and knew where everything was. 3 incidents, same half-mile stretch, 1987 to 1991. Then she started talking to people. The previous tenant of the Hiller property, the one who had left before the Pruitts moved in, was a man named Warren Gill who had relocated to Shreveport after leaving Crossett. Deb tracked him down through a cousin who still lived locally. She called him on a Sunday afternoon in February 1992. Warren Gill had left the Hiller property in October 1988, 2 months before the Pruitts arrived. He had broken a 6-month lease, forfeited his deposit, and moved out in a single weekend without telling his employer he was leaving. He had quit his job by phone from Shreveport. He didn't want to talk about it, Deb told a Historical Society colleague in a letter she wrote in 1994, which his colleague later shared with researchers. I called him 3 times before he would say more than, "I just needed a change of scene." On the 3rd call, he told me he had seen something in the hollow access road from his kitchen window at around 3 in the morning. He couldn't sleep. He was up getting water. He said it was walking slowly down the center of the road, away from his house, toward the washed-out bridge. He said he only saw it for about 15 seconds before it passed into the trees. He said he didn't call anyone because he couldn't figure out how to describe it without sounding crazy. He moved out the following weekend. I asked him to describe what he saw. He said he could only tell me 3 things. It was very tall, it was walking without any hurry at all, and in 15 seconds of watching it move down a road in his direct line of sight, it never once looked back at the house. She found 2 other accounts after that. A retired pulpwood cutter named Amos Treadwell, who in 1985 had been working a timber stand adjacent to the hollow and had stopped working one afternoon because he, quote, heard something big moving in the hollow that didn't sound right and that he didn't want to see. He packed his equipment and left without finishing the section. He had told this story at the VFW hall before, had told it as a funny story, a harmless story about being spooked by the woods, but when Deb pressed him on the sound, he got quiet. He said it was too regular, too even. He said whatever was moving through those trees was moving like something that belonged there, like something that had always been there. The second account was older. In 1979, a Route 9 resident named Cora Watkins had called the sheriff to report that something had been pulling the feed sacks off her back porch at night. She assumed a bear. Deputies came out, looked around, and found nothing conclusive. The following week, Cora's husband Jim was sitting on the porch after supper and watched something walk out of the hollow tree line, cross the 300 yards of open field behind their property, and stand at the edge of their yard for what he estimated as 4 or 5 minutes. He did not call 911. He went inside, locked the doors, and told Cora they were moving. They moved the following month. Jim Watkins died in 1988. Cora was still alive when Deb spoke to her in 1992, living in a senior apartment in Monticello. She was 81 years old. She said the thing Jim had described to her that evening, the only time he'd ever talked about it, and he'd made her swear not to tell anyone until after he was gone, was this. It was shaped like a person. It moved like a person, but its proportions were wrong in a way he couldn't fully articulate. Too long. Too thin, in the wrong places. And when it stood at the edge of their yard, it stood completely still. Jim said it wasn't standing there like it was confused or deciding something. Cora told Deb. He said it was standing there the way you stand when you're somewhere you own. The way you stand on your own land. like it was just checking on something. Chapter 5. The Last Call. February 7th, 1994. This is the one that changes the whole story. Because the first 3 calls, Marla Deason, Stacy Pruitt, and Cody Marsh, you can explain each of those away if you want to. Stress, sleep deprivation, and a spooked teenager in the dark. You might not believe those explanations, but they're available. The call from February 7th, 1994 doesn't give you that. Because the person who made that call was a deputy sheriff, and what he reported isn't on record anywhere in the Ashley County files, because the call was never officially logged. Deputy Trent Alford had responded to 2 of the 3 previous calls. He knew the area. He had thought about the mud prints from the Deason call more than he would admit to anyone. He had thought about the fuel tank. In January 1994, Alford started doing something he didn't tell his supervisor about. On slow nights, of which there were many in a county of 23,000 people in the dead of Arkansas winter, he drove out to Route 9. He would park just east of the hollow, lights off, and sit. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. He told himself he was doing due diligence. He told himself the whole thing had a rational explanation, and he was going to find it. He sat in that spot 6 times over the course of 3 weeks. Nothing happened. The hollow was dark and still, and the only sounds were the wind and the occasional 18-wheeler on Route 9 proper. On the 7th time, February 7th, something happened. He was parked at 11:40 p.m., engine off, driver's window down about 3 inches. He had been there for 40 minutes. He would later admit, half asleep. He came fully awake when he heard something on the access road. Footsteps. On gravel. Slow and deliberate. Moving from the direction of the washed-out bridge toward Route 9. One set of footsteps, bipedal, unhurried. Getting closer. He said later that he had his hand on the door handle and his other hand on his flashlight and was completely prepared to get out of the car and identify himself. He had done it 100 times. It was not a thing he was afraid of. Except that the footsteps stopped. Not gradually. Not the way a person stops when they hear something and slows down. They stopped mid-stride. 1 step, then nothing. Complete silence. He said the silence felt pressurized, like the silence you feel when you stick your head underwater. Then, after what he estimated as 30 seconds of silence, came the sound he spent the next 3 years trying to describe accurately. It was a low sound, he said. Not a growl, not a vocalization in any way I'd heard before. More like pressure, like when you're near a very large piece of machinery that's running but not at full speed, a vibration that's right at the edge of being a sound. You feel it in your chest before you actually hear it. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, and then the footsteps started again, and they were going back the other way, back toward the bridge, and they didn't stop until I couldn't hear them anymore. He sat in the car for another 40 minutes without moving. Then he drove back to Crossett. He did not file a report. He did not tell his supervisor. He called the dispatch line from the payphone at the Gas and Go on Main Street, a call that was technically recorded but not logged, and which Deb Schrum found only because she knew the dispatcher on duty that night, a woman named Paulette Chambers, who remembered the call because she had recognized Alfred's voice. UNLOGGED. Call, Ashley County Sheriff's Dispatch, February 7th, 1994, 12:54 a.m. Reconstructed from dispatcher's notes and recollection. No official recording survives. Alfred. Paulette, it's Trent. I was out on Route 9 tonight. Paulette. I know. I saw your plate on the scanner earlier. What are you doing out there at this hour? Alfred. Something came down the access road, came toward me, then stopped, then went back. Paulette. An animal? Alfred. Long pause, the footfall spacing. On the gravel. The spacing between steps was, Paulette. It was the same as what I measured in 1987. Same spacing. That's 7 years. Paulette. Trent. Alfred. I know. I know what I'm saying. Paulette. What do you want to do? Alfred. Nothing. I needed to tell somebody. Don't log this. Oz. It made a sound before it left. I don't have words for it, but I think it knew I was there. I think it had been known the whole time. I think it came to the road so I could hear it, and then it made that sound so I would understand something. And then it left. Paulette. What did you understand? Alfred. Very long pause that it lives there. That the hollow is its. That it's been there longer than the road, longer than the county, longer than any of us. And that it's pause patient. It doesn't need us to leave. It knows we'll leave on our own. We always leave on our own. It just has to wait us out, and it has all the time in the world to do it. Trent Alford retired from the Ashley County Sheriff's Office in 1998 at the age of 47, citing health reasons. He moved to Mountain Home in Baxter County near Bull Shoals Lake, as far from the timber flats as you can get and still be in Arkansas. He declined to speak to the podcast in 2019. He has not spoken publicly about the hollow at any point. Paulette Chambers, who gave Deb Schrum her account of the call in 1995, said that Alfred's voice during that conversation was unlike anything she'd heard from him in 11 years of working dispatch together. Trent Alford was not a man who's scared. I never heard him sound scared, not once, in 11 years. That night it wasn't fear, exactly. It was more like a resolution, like someone who had been looking for an answer and finally found it, and it turned out to be an answer they would have preferred not to find. If you want more stories that will keep you up at night, subscribe to Red State Horror on YouTube for new stories every week. Chapter 6. What's still there? The gate on the access road is still there. The Deason house is still standing, barely. The Hiller property burned down in 2003 under circumstances the county fire marshal listed as undetermined. Nobody was living in it. The land is still there. The hollow is still there. Route 9 still dips through it on the way east, out of Crossett, and if you drive it in the right conditions, a November night, fog low to the ground, no other cars, the fog moves differently through that half mile. Slower, thicker, like something is standing in it, and the fog is moving around it. That's not a metaphor. That's what people who have driven it describe. That's what Deb Schrum wrote in her notes after she drove it herself in 1994 at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. The fog in the hollow behaves as though something is displacing it. I have no better language for this. I drove through and did not stop. Deb Schrum compiled her research into a 72-page document in 1995, which she donated to the Ashley County Historical Society. The document is available to researchers on request. It contains the incident report numbers, the interviews, her own observations, and a timeline dating the hollow reports back to 1961, when a hunting party reported coming across a campsite on the washed-out bridge. A campsite that none of them had made, that appeared to have been used recently, and that contained bones arranged in a pattern none of them could explain. They were deer bones. The hunters agreed. They didn't stop to look more closely. In her conclusion, Deb wrote something that has been quoted in 3 different podcast episodes and a regional horror anthology since then. She wrote, "I am a historian. I deal in what can be proved. What can be proved here is this. 7 different people, across 33 years, encountered something in the half-mile stretch of Route 9 hollow that they could not explain, and that changed their behavior permanently. All of them left. None of them went back. This is the historical record of the hollow. Something lives there that we do not have a name for. That does not mean it isn't real. It means only that we haven't found the right word for it yet. The thing itself has been getting along just fine without a name." The Deason property changed hands twice in the early 2000s. A developer bought it with plans to clear the hollow section for a small subdivision, surveyed the land, and resold it within 8 months without breaking ground. No public explanation. The current owner is an LLC registered in Fayetteville. Nobody has built on it. Nobody has cleared the hollow. The gate on the access road has a county padlock on it. The padlock has been replaced twice since 1992. Each time, the old lock was found cut and lying in the road. Not picked, not forced, but cut cleanly, as if with a very strong pair of bolt cutters. No footprints, no tire tracks, just the lock, cut, on the ground. The county doesn't send maintenance crews to the hollow access road anymore. They replace the lock by leaving the new one on the gate post and driving away. No one gets out of the truck. Crossett is a real town. Route 9 is a real road. Ashley County case number 8710441 is a real file that you can request. The hollow is real. Whatever is in it is real. 3 families, 1 deputy, 1 retired woodcutter, and 2 elderly witnesses. 7 sets of eyes, 7 separate accounts, 33 years, and the same half-mile of land at the center of all of it. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to pretend I do. But I know that Marla Deason never went back. I know that Stacy Pruitt sleeps with the lights on to this day. I know that Trent Alford moved 300 miles away from that road and has never spoken about it publicly. And I know that if you're in Ashley County tonight and you're driving east on Route 9, you'll know the hollow when you get to it. The temperature will drop. The radio will start to hiss. And the fog, if there's any fog at all, will move wrong. Too slow. Too thick. Like it's moving around something. Keep driving. Don't slow down. Don't stop. If you know about a hollow in your town, if there's a stretch of road or a patch of land in your county where people don't go, where the stories pile up and nobody has a good explanation, drop it in the comments. We read everything. Subscribe to Red State Horror. Next week, we're going deeper into the Ozarks. You don't want to miss where that road goes.